Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, I've bribed you with a little chocolate. I will be asking you for your participation later, so I hope that entices you to participate. As we go through some of the practice exercises, I thought you could be my student for the day instead of me just going back and forth with myself. So as Sue said, you know, we're just really proud to be celebrating 75 years at the Reading Center with our two amazing women who started the Reading Center, Paula Rome and Jean Osman. The Reading Center has been changing lives and supporting those with dyslexia since 1951. So, okay, so just before I start, you know, there's been a lot of talk lately in research about phonological awareness. I'm sure raise your hand if you've read anything about the effectiveness of phonological awareness or any. Yep, there's been a lot of research, and it's showing that targeted phonological awareness is really the best way to have the skills transfer from oral to written skills. And so this is how we practice phonological and morphological awareness at the Reading Center, and so I'm excited to share it with you today. So let's just begin with a little bit of review with the terms, so we have a common vocabulary together today. Phonological awareness is the ability to recognize and manipulate the sounds in spoken language. Morphological awareness is explicitly thinking about the smallest units of meaning in language, which are morphemes. These include root words and affixes. Okay, so why is phonological awareness important? Well, oral language comes before written language. We all know that kids talk before they read in most instances, right? And it sets the stage for decoding, blending, and ultimately word reading. So phonological awareness is a predictor of reading and spelling success. Written language is patterned upon the oral language in the brain. So how does phonemic awareness support orthographic mapping when that happens in the brain? Well, before one can map letters to sounds, they must first identify the individual sounds in a word. So phonemic awareness provides the foundational oral framework required to link graphemes, which are letters, to phonemes, which are sounds, in the memory, which is the core of orthographic mapping. Phoneme manipulation practice allows the brain to rapidly connect the sounds to letters, bypassing the need for repeated sounding out. Without strong phonemic awareness, readers struggle to make these connections, making it harder to store words in their brain permanently. So phonemic awareness helps create automatic access to phonemes, which is needed to read words quickly and accurately. And that's researched by Dr. Linnea Airy. My clicker isn't working, sorry. I'm not sure why. Let's do it manually. Oh, what's happening? Seems like it's frozen. Sorry, just a second, technical issues. There we go. Okay, so this is a quote from a summary of research referring to research by Dr. Linnea Airy, Dr. Lucy Hartrath, and Dr. Gary Troia, and it emphasizes phonological awareness is essential for readers to be able to decode the alphabetic writing system. And the quote is, "The fact is well proven. Phonological awareness is critical for learning to read any alphabetic writing system." So what are the skills that we're developing when we're practicing phonological awareness? Well, the two skills that we're working on when practicing phonological awareness are synthesis or blending, which is essential for sounding out words. So when students sound out words b, ul, e, nd. And also analysis is the second skill. So pulling a word apart into individual phonemes. So those are the two skills that we're working on. And then the tasks, the phonological awareness tasks, those are the activities that we're doing to develop those skills. So these are the tasks that the two skills work on. So the tasks are all phonological awareness, but then the ones that are bolded are specifically phonemic awareness tasks. And I have another way to look at that here. So here are the 5 levels of phonological awareness, and they all move simple to complex in the activities, and then within the sections, you'd want to move from simple to complex when you're working on different tasks with students. The most advanced levels of phonemic awareness are deletion and manipulation of sounds and words. And I really like this umbrella graphic because it kind of shows this is all phonological awareness. But on the right side of the umbrella, I want to make sure on the right side of the umbrella, those are the phonemic awareness specific tasks. Oops. Apologies. Okay, so phonemic awareness is the bridge that connects the spoken and written language. So by enabling individuals to consciously identify, segment, and manipulate individual sounds and spoken words, allowing them to map these sounds to letters, this auditory to visual mapping is essential for reading and spelling. And I just want to say, and if anybody has a question or clarification during, just wave your hand. So phonological awareness activities are oral only. So when you're working on phonological awareness, you want to do oral activities with your student. Tasks should be presented in an oral format. Physical letters should not be present. When you present physical letters, you're practicing phonics, and the skill of phonological awareness is not being strengthened. So if your student does require scaffolding, this is something that you would use when they need it, but you want to make sure to pull back from that as you can to strengthen that skill with your student. So if you're having them listen to a word like pin and identify the short vowel sound, if they need the short vowels in front of them to kind of, show you which one they're hearing, you want to eventually be able to pull back from that and pull those away. So let's talk about why morphological awareness is important. Well, learning prefixes, roots, and suffixes in an explicit, systematic, and structured way is essential for students with dyslexia. It builds vocabulary, but also gives background on why words are spelled the way they are and where they come from historically. We just heard a lot about that in the last workshop. Morphemes help give us meaning to our words, whether we are speaking or writing. And students do not perceive the individual units in a word or their meaning. So we want to point that out to them and help them see the individual units with meaning. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about where to start. When you're starting with a student or a group of students, where do you start when it comes to their phonological awareness knowledge? So at the Reading Center, we use the PAST assessment. That is by David Kilpatrick. It's in his book, Equipped for Reading Success, but it's also available free online. And so I have the link here. So the PAST assessment itself, there's 4 versions of it, the same test, and his instructions are all available at this website. At the Orton-Gillingham Academy Conference in March, Dr. Jane Ashby just presented a new phonological awareness assessment that she created, and it's very similar to the PAST. I myself have not used it yet, but I just wanted to put that information out there. It's called the PADDI, P-A-D-D-I. And there's, I'm sorry? What's your name? Dr. Jane Ashby presented that. And she also presented on the research is showing that targeted phonological awareness is the most effective way to practice phonological awareness with students. So, okay, so really important about the PAST test, it's important to familiarize yourself with the instructions. On the website, I believe it's like a 12-page document, the directions, but it's super important to read through those, especially before you administer it the first time. There's a timing piece, a timing component with the scoring of the PAST, and that's essential to getting good information about your students' knowledge. So it's scored as automatic or not, and then if it's not correct, it's a different score. But if the student takes some time, like even a couple seconds, that's not automatic. They don't know that to automaticity, and so that's a really important piece. So I suggest that you, before you give the PAST, you read those instructions, and that will be really helppful. Okay, so on a recent podcast, I believe it was in February, David Kilpatrick was talking, and it was entitled Rethinking Phonological Awareness. And he just talked a little bit about the importance of that timing piece. And he said that phonemic proficiency, which is the ability to automatically, quickly, and effortlessly manipulate, which is add, delete, substitute, or reverse individual sounds within spoken words, tells us more than whether they get something right or wrong. So just that automatic retrieval, that tells us more than whether they actually get the task correct or incorrect. So that timing piece is just very important.
Can I have a quick question on that?
Yes.
How much do you see automaticity coming with practice? Like, how much can that improve if it's not there?
Timing?
Yeah, the automaticity piece. If they are getting it right, but it's taking them a great effort, can you improve how much?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it can improve because you're really working on that orthographic mapping in their brain, which will transfer to reading and writing. So with targeted practice, so targeting practice based on what you see in the past, and we'll talk about in a little bit another way to see where you need to work. By targeting those areas, you will see improvement. And you want to work towards mastery on a concept. So you're going to keep working with a student until they're able to do that task with automaticity. Okay, and then often I get questions about reassessment. Like, how often should I reassess my student with phonological awareness? Well, it kind of depends on your situation, right? Are you a school teacher? Do you have different benchmarks where you need to reassess? If you are doing error-driven or targeted phonological and morphological awareness, you are constantly doing progress monitoring. You're monitoring what their errors are, what their progress is, and you're addressing it right away. So that's progress monitoring right there. But maybe once a semester or once a year, or if you're just seeing a lot of change in your student and you want to see where they are, that would be my recommendation. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the past, and that's a great way to see where your students' areas of weakness are, but what else can you do? So at the Reading Center, we look at error, we use the results from the past, but we also look at errors from their previous lesson. So we take a look at all the errors that they had made in the previous lesson and try to prescribe practice based on those errors. And so that is how we target their area of need. So let's just look at what some errors might look at. So like I said, we look at the errors recorded from the last lesson. Do they all have a common thread? Often they will. Like, there's a lot of short vowel errors in this lesson, or they're having trouble moving from phonological to morphological, so they're dropping suffixes or adding suffixes. Are there errors, phonological awareness or morphological awareness? That's something else that's really important to diagnose. A phonological awareness error might look like short or long vowel error, segmenting, blending. Those are all phonological awareness. But if they're making errors with a prefix, root, or suffix, if they're having trouble isolating or identifying those things, if they're adding or deleting suffixes, if they're having trouble with meaning, those are all morphological awareness errors. So there's two approaches you can take to working on tasks with students for phonological and morphological awareness. One is proactive teaching. So when we're going to lay the groundwork to introduce a new concept, because oral language comes before written language, you could introduce that concept, excuse me, in a phonological awareness task activity. So an unfamiliar concept to a student, you could find a way to introduce it orally with them and practice it, and then later explicitly teach it to them as well. So based on your assessment, you can pre-teach skills that you'll be introducing. For example, a student with auditory processing deficits may show they need to be directly taught blends, like beginning or ending blends. So a few things that you could do to introduce them to your student might be isolating or identifying a beginning or ending blend in a word. So you'd say a word, they'd repeat it and identify the blend for you. Repeating and segmenting words with blends, so segmenting them out on their fingers. Blending a beginning blend with the rest of the word. Or isolating or identifying a blend and then producing another word with the same blend. So if I said blend, and they would repeat it, and then I'd ask them to tell me another word with that blend, like black. So they're just identifying it and then coming up with another one. And then the other way to teach PA and MA is corrective teaching, and that's what we do most of the time. So when you record their error on the lesson, you think about what type of errors they're making, and then prescribe tasks that address that error specifically.
Can I go back to the blend one? I have a student who reads all the blends.
Uh-huh.
But then when we write it,
Right.
she'll skip the blend one time and not the other, and it's super inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be having her tap it out every time before she writes, or?
Would you mind repeating that?
Thank you. So she asked about a student who has no trouble reading blends, but then it kind of falls apart when they go to spell words with blends, correct? So that would definitely be something I would work on in phonological awareness. And then, to answer your question, when I would have them writing words, I'd be having them repeat the word and then segmenting it each time. And that will really catch each sound. But that would definitely be a great place to work on phonological awareness before the lesson as well. Okay, so planning phonological awareness tasks based on errors. So this is targeted practice. So look at your students' errors. For example, a student of mine wrote the word set instead of sit. So they heard set, they said set, and then when they segmented it, they spelled set, and then when they wrote it, it was sit. So determine the nature of the error, and in this example, the student is insecure with their short vowel sounds. So I would determine which type of task would benefit my student. In this case, I could choose from vowel isolation, so they're hearing a word and then isolating that vowel sound, segmenting a word, or substituting. In this case, substituting would look like if I say set and they repeat, and then I say instead of say I, and they would, substitute it for sit. Vowel isolation. So this is kind of where I thought maybe we could work together. If I gesture to, you can be the student. So say hit. Hit. What does the vowel say? Hit. Thank you. Okay, so segmenting. So repeat and segment sounds. So if I say fit, I always want my student to be repeating. So fit. Fit. And let's segment the sounds. It. Good. Ask them what the vowel says. You could go a step further. The vowel says. There you go. So keep in mind, we always model these tasks for our students. So when we're working on phonological awareness, I always model the first one for my student. I'll have a video later showing me working with a student, but I do, we do, then you do. So we're always kind of doing that slow release and showing them exactly what we expect out of them. Okay, so this is where I have some errors, and then I'm going to show you what I might prescribe for that student. So in this case, the student spelled bet for bent in general spelling of their lesson. So these are some options for that specific error. These are some options that I could do with my student in the next lesson for phonological awareness. So I could have him isolate the ending blend in words that I would provide. I could have him segment ending blends. So repeat the word blend. He would say it, blend, and then segment the ending blend. D. Addition, so say ben. Now add t to the end. And then substitution, say bent. Bent. Now instead of t, say d. Bend. There we go. Okay, another error. A student is sounding out words maybe in blending and said bring instead of bring. So they're really saying that instead of r. So what are some things could I do in the next lesson to practice that? We could segment our blends, right? So I would say br, they would repeat, and then segment b, r. Deletion, say bring. Bring. Now don't say b. Bring. There we go. Addition, say ring. Ring. Add b to the beginning. Bring. There we go. Or substitution, say bring. Bring. Now instead of r, say ul. There we go.
Ask a quick question.
Absolutely.
Are you doing all, would you do all?
No, I'm sorry. That's a good point. These are just suggestions. I would choose one of these. Thank you for saying that.
And there's a hierarchy of skills maybe here? Is this some of these easier than others?
100%. So there's a hierarchy of skills. We go simple to complex within each. Like segmenting, you would go simple to complex. Deletion, simple to, always go simple to complex. So sorry, I just wanted to give you a lot of examples for each error. So you would not, I would choose one of these, and I would do about, now you want to be diagnostic and prescriptive for your student. I usually do 8 to 10. I shoot for 10, like quick. You know, like if we did, for example, the addition, I would choose 10 words. It should take 1 to 2 minutes for a phonological awareness activity. I think the video I'll show you later is 1 minute and 22 seconds.
And are you still doing all of this orally before
Yes.
written letters?
Yes. That is the goal. Okay? And the higher level, the manipulation of words, so deletion, addition, substitution, that's where you want to get to. Okay? The segmenting and stuff, that's lower level. And you want to eventually get to the higher level that shows true mastery and automaticity. Good question.
I'm curious, what is the reason to avoid having letters on the page when you're doing these, when you're, like, you could also, you know, switch the writing in connection with the photo
Right.
class. So what is the reason to avoid having letters?
Right. So as I had quoted from David Kilpatrick talks about when you have writing on the page and the student is focusing on writing, you're really practicing reading and spelling, and you're not strengthening the phonological awareness. So if your student needs a scaffold, then always provide a scaffold, but you want to try to eventually pull away from that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that is there's different views on that in the research in terms of doing things with them. I know that's definitely Kilpatrick has been doing that, but just
Yes, and that's why I think if your student needs it and can't do it without it, then of course you would provide whatever your student needs.
Wouldn't you also comment about the cognitive load because of some students, the amount we're expecting and layering on?
Yeah.
It's a step-by-step process.
Absolutely. That's why it's always important to work simple to complex. You know your student best, and this is targeted and diagnostic. So you're not going to throw an activity at them that they can't complete. They might not have mastery it the first time you do it, like it might take them seconds to answer, but then you'll know that you need to keep working on it. Okay? If you're working on something that they can just get like this, that they don't need to work on that.
I think one nice thing too is you can do these activities like as you're picking up groups in the hallway. It's nice sometimes not to have activities that need paper, pencil, or whiteboards. You can just kind of do them first, standing in line.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to repeat that back?
Oh, sorry. So she said it's nice to have, like, she said it would be nice to work on in the hallway when you're grabbing students. It's nice to not need whiteboard, markers, pens, paper, etc. Thank you. Yeah, and I call this, I just call it a warm-up. I do it at the beginning of my lesson with my students. So I would say, okay, it's time for a warm-up. So they don't know exactly that we're targeting phonological or morphological awareness. We're just doing a warm-up. Okay, another example for an error. The word is blip for blimp. So these are some options for you. So ending blend isolation, so say blimp. Blimp. What is the blend you hear at the end of the word? Good. Phoneme segmentation, so again say blimp. Blimp. Now let's segment the sounds in the word. B, O, I, M. Good. Do word chaining, so with the same ending, so say blimp. Now instead of bull, say cr at the beginning. Good. Deletion, say blimp. Now say blimp, but don't say b. And then addition, say limp. Now say limp, but add cr to the beginning. Okay, so moving from phonological awareness to morphological awareness. So again, I would look at my students' errors. Pete talked about this in his, I have seen this error before, I'm sure all of you have too. Walked with a T instead of walked, so I would determine that is a morphological awareness error. The student's not using their metacognition when they're writing their answer. They're not thinking about the meaning of the suffix. So I would determine which type of task would benefit your student. In this case, you could choose focusing on the meaning of the morpheme, or you could do word substitution with that same suffix, or if the student knows all three sounds of the suffix ed, you could have them identify what sound ed is making in each of those words. You could also connect it, we always want to connect it to meaning. So I would say jumped. And then jumped means you already did the jump. It's in the past. It already happened. Substitution could be say walked. Now instead of walk, say talk. And then sound identification. So say clamped. The suffix ed says t in that word. So some ideas for morphological awareness. Syllable or morpheme addition, so say walk. Now say walk, but add s. Say walked, but don't say t. Walk. Good. So we're deleting the suffix there. Substitution could look like say walked. Now instead of walk, say stop. And then also segmenting, so resisting, we'd segment by morphemes. So the prefix is re, the root, sist, suffix, ing. And then morpheme identification and meaning. So I would give the student the word pretest. I'd ask them for the prefix, which is pre, and then ask them for the definition. It means before. And then depending on the student, you can ask them all those things. You can discuss it together. You can ask, what is a pretest? It's a test you take before the test. So working towards meaning. Yes, Lisa?
Are these activities also done without text then?
Yes.
So still with just sound? Okay. Thank you.
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I keep forgetting.
That's
She
okay.
said, and these activities are all done without text in front of them. Yes. Okay, so let's look at an error. This one is similar to the walked error, but they spelled jumped with a T instead of ED. So what are some things we could do to work on that error? We could do addition. So say jump. Now say jump, but add t to the end. Jumped. Isolation, so identify the suffix. So I would give the word jumped, have the student repeat it. Give the suffix, t, and then what suffix can say t. I would ask my student, they would say ed, the suffix ed can say t, and that means, and it already happened, or it's past tense. And then isolation and production, so repeating the word, identifying the suffix, and then giving another word with that suffix. So if I said jumped, and and then the student could repeat it and then give me another word that uses t. Ed says t, like walked. Okay, another morphological error would be the student wrote plans for plants. So here they're not looking at the root word and then the suffix. So they wrote, they missed the T. So what are some things we could do to address that error? In isolation, we could have them identify the base word without the suffix. So say plants. What is the base word? Plant. Suffix deletion, so say plants. Now say plants without s. Plant. Isolation, so repeat the word, then identify the suffix. Say plants. The suffix is s. In addition, same thing. Say plant, now add the suffix plants. Okay. A reading error, the student read played for played. So what are some targeted practice suggestions for that? You could do addition again. Say play. Now say play and add d to the end. Played. Deletion would be just the opposite of that. And then also we could connect to meaning. So say played. If you played, when did it happen? Past tense, or it already happened. All right. Okay. This error, so forecast for forecast, okay? We have two prefixes. They sound the exact same, but they have really different meanings, right? So the student wrote F-O-R cast instead of F-O-R-E cast. What are some things I could do to target this? So I could identify the prefix. So if I said forecast, I'd have my student identify the prefix, for. It means before. And then they could give me a definition in their own words. Forecast means predict what will happen in the future, or predict the weather in the future, or whatever they would say. It just connects it to the meaning. Deletion, so say forecast. Now say forecast without for. Cast. Good. And then addition, same thing. Say cast and then add for to the beginning, forecast.
But you would still do that without text because they did some writing though. You obviously saw some writing in the text. That would make sense with that.
So the error happened in the last lesson, and I'm doing this practice with them at the beginning of the next lesson. Does that make sense?
They're doing the sound, they sound exactly alike.
Right, so this part would just be oral, but I would, of course, be reviewing that prefix in the lesson explicitly. This is just kind of like, and so we would be doing the oral language first, and then we'd be moving into the written. I would do a review of that exact prefix, writing it, saying it as they write it, talking about the meaning, reading words, and spelling words with that prefix. So this isn't the only addressing of the error. This is just the phonological or morphological awareness addressing of the error. Does that make sense?
It's kind of a tricky one because it sounds exactly alike.
It does, and that's why we need to connect it to meaning. Okay, all right, so here I have a video with my student. We're doing a prefix substitution exercise, so I'm gonna make sure that can play, and I hope that everyone can hear it as well.
Okay, time for a warm-up. This morning we are going to identify and substitute prefixes. I'll do the first one. The word is extend. Instead of ex, say in. The new word is intend. Your turn. Say prevent.
Prevent.
Instead of pre, say in.
Invent.
Compute.
Compute.
Instead of come, say dis.
Dispute.
Exclude.
Exclude.
Instead of ex, say in.
Include.
Protest.
Protest.
Instead of pro, say re.
Retest.
Subtract.
Subtract.
Instead of sub, say dis.
Distract.
Unmade.
Unmade.
Instead of un, say pre.
Remade.
Restrict.
Restrict.
Instead of re, say con.
Constrict.
Inspire.
Inspire.
Instead of in, say ex.
Expire.
Excellent.
Okay, so sorry, I didn't mention the error. So my student had wrote EXS for a prefix in the last lesson. So he was spelling it with phonemes instead of thinking about it as a morphological unit. So I, of course, reviewed X after this, but I was getting his brain recognizing the prefix, the morphological unit in those words. So that was our warm-up. And then I went into an old review of the prefix X. Okay. All right. Okay, so I was shooting for quarter 2, but I thought maybe you could work together to come up with an exercise for an error. So you can like work with your table mates or whatever. So let's do the error that your student, do you guys want to work on a phonological or morphological awareness error? Phonological? Sure. Is that what I heard? Okay. All right, so let's say your student wrote let's see. I had one that my student made the other day and I was trying to think. Oh, okay, they wrote SGR for scrape instead of SCR for scrape. So they wrote SGR for SCR.
SGREPE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe work with a table mate and see what you might prescribe for that error. Does anybody else need a packet? Did anyone else not get one?
You're okay. You're good. Thank you. It's okay. That was very thoughtful.
Oh, sorry, I could have brought you one. Oh, sure. So what would you think the error was here? Yeah. Yeah. So what would you do you think?
If they broke it out,
Mm-hmm.
I would like let's stick together.
Right.
And I could totally see where they would think that was because they sound so similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I point that out. I'd be like, oh, that's really similar.
Right.
But I could see
Yeah, and hear all the sounds, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oops. I'm going to trip on that every time.
It's hard.
What would you guys do?
I was saying that I would want to tell the student that SCR, because it sounds like that, but it's not what it is.
Right. Right, that's a pretty common error, right? So what would you do to practice it? Like practice identifying all those sounds.
I guess I would have never ever.
They know that, right? Yeah, exactly. I love it.
You can feel the difference.
Sorry.
That's right, because the bit is yes, you would, but
Yeah.
because they're not hearing.
Okay, I think I'm going to stop you. There's really good discussion going on, so I hate stopping you, but would anybody like to share what they came up with, what you might practice with your student if they made that error? Does anybody want to share what they came up with?
We thought that we would still go to segmenting, and so they're really tapping out each of the sounds. It's k, or they want them to hear that k instead of a
Mm-hmm.
their words that have those three sounds at the beginning. We're kind of tapping out those.
Awesome. So she said they would have the student segment, and then you would do that with other words with SCR as well.
What about dropping, like, after you go through the part, then drop the S, and it'd be crate, or drop the R and be skate.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be hard, but.
Yeah. Yeah, you want them to hear every sound, right? They're not hearing all the sounds clearly, and so, yeah, awesome. Okay, so my resources are on the handout too, but any questions? I know we kind of took questions during too, but I have my email up there if you have any questions or have any thoughts about the presentation. But I just want to thank you so much today for coming to this presentation, and it was a really great day of workshops, and so thank you to IDA UMB for having us all. Yes. And then too. Thank you.